This is the USA Emergency Broadcast Network, your source for reliable disaster preparedness information.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of this station, its management, sponsors, or other hosts. If you have any comments or suggestions about this program, please contact us at radio@usaebn.org. That's radio@usaebn.org.
Welcome to a new Zeta report here on USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. We're live first Mondays of every month, a partnership with ZetaTalk.com and Zeta Talk with USA Emergency Broadcasting Network. We're happy to welcome back to the show Nancy Laeder from Zeta Talk. Nancy, you're there?
Hi, yes I am. I'm looking forward. Tonight's show is what I would call very powerful information, how from different cultures and different times, it all was relaying the same message about what a passage of Nibiru means for the earth, what is pending in our future, what has happened in the past. It's phenomenal, the sources that come together and say the same message. And I call it many, many voices, same message. Before we get going, just let me read the disclaimer. In partnership with USAEBN, Zeta Talk and the Zeta Report will be discussing the challenges of living on a planet beset with change, rising seas, increasing earthquakes and volcanic activity, weather gone wild, and the worry of what to do in a worst-case scenario. We will also inject Zeta Talk prophecy on what is coming next and advice on readiness plans and safe locations. Whenever Zeta Talk is quoted, please remember that prophecy is not fact. It is opinion. It only becomes fact when it happens. The Zetas are remarkably accurate but have been wrong on occasion. Bear that in mind. For more information on this subject, please visit ZetaTalk.com or the Zeta Report on YouTube. Questions from the chat and issues raised in the chat will be addressed toward the end of the hour after the main feature has been presented. Throughout the ages, various prophets have sought to warn the populace about the periodic passage of Nibiru. The pole shifts of the past have been depicted and the coming pole shift laid out as a warning. The sequence of events is presented and the timeline is routinely missing. This is important because toward the end of this hour, I will explain how we may have gotten a timeline. Where we're always saying the date is not to be known, we may have been given a clue. These warnings are often allegorical or depicted in myth as a story populated with fantastic characters. In many cases, the warning is passed down as a verbal story or allegorical, but can be deciphered. Shiva. In India, the god Shiva, the god of destruction and renewal, represents Nibiru. Shiva also has a red aspect about him. Sure sounds like Nibiru. Quoting Wikipedia, the cosmic functions of creation, maintenance, and destruction are personified by the forms of Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the maintainer or preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer or transformer. These three deities have been called the Hindu triad. Kali. Kali is one of Shiva's wives, has a dusky blue color. This seems to be the Earth's dark twin. Quoting Wikipedia again, the name Kali means black, time, death, Lord of death. Kali is represented as the consort of Lord Shiva, on whose body she is often seen standing. Kali is portrayed mostly in two forms, the popular four-armed form and the ten-armed Mahari form. In both of her forms, she is described as being black in color, but is most often depicted as blue in popular Indian art. Do we have evidence that the dark twin exists? Per Zeta Talk, the presence of Nibiru in the inner solar system has blocked the Earth orbit, so the dark twin, which normally rides exactly opposite the Earth in their shared orbit, has moved up behind the Earth. It has indeed been seen and photographed. It appears at dusk when one looks out along the orbit path and been photographed many times. And by the way, this has only started since Nibiru came into our inner solar system in 2003. At that point, it started to become visible. So because of the way sunlight bouncing the angle, being able to see something, some of the best images happened in 2004, and thereafter it was after dusk, looking out in the orbit behind us, which would be to the west, just at dusk or after dusk, there it is. Okay, here we go.
Well, Nancy, go ahead. If I might interrupt, not necessarily about the prophecy so much, but recent sightings of an extra moon opposite our moon at about a week ago, a couple of different sightings, one in Berlin and one in I believe in Africa or the Middle East, and it could possibly be the dark twin, but we're not really told what's going on, I guess. So
was it in the
we have to kind of figure it out.
Sky, I take it, right?
Night sky, right?
It would have to be in the night sky, yeah. Boy, right. I'd have to look into that. It's supposed to be coming closer and closer until we get into the last weeks. And the last weeks are such a squeeze. Venus is pressed toward us. The dark twin is pressed toward us. And here comes Nibiru preventing anybody from getting away because these particle flows come around Nibiru from either side, right. Forming like a crab-like pinch. So we have these three planets, Venus, the Earth, and the dark twin, all of which are about the same size, bumping around in there in the pincers. And Venus moves out, pops out and moves on. The dark twin slips behind the Earth and pops out and moves on. And then Nibiru affects the passage of Earth and barrels on out of the solar system. So this is why the dark twin appears in Indian mythology and in death and destruction, etc., because it looms large. We'll be able to see these Venus and the dark twin, as well as Nibiru, as the last weeks approach, and it's getting closer. They're all getting closer. The last weeks are getting closer too. Okay, the dark twin has a blue. Yeah, what, Andrew? Yeah.
Oh, no. I was just wanting to say thank you. That's all.
Oh, come on. No, thank you.
Right.
It has a blue or purple color, but also, per the Zetas, reflects yellow light. Quoting folks in the U.S. who saw it in 2004 when the angle for bounced sunlight was optimal in April 2004. All over the world, these reports came in, and I quote, "What the heck is that star in the sky? I know that it was at least 3 times bigger than Venus has ever appeared. It is brighter than others, and it is always low on the horizon. I've been seeing it here in Phoenix, Arizona for a week now. It's very obvious. It is due west, in the western sky about 10 p.m. my time." And somebody else says, "Truly, this is for real. I live in suburban Detroit. I saw it in the sky around 11 o'clock p.m. It was so huge, I thought it might be an airplane coming in. I believe it was in the southwest sky, low on the horizon, and the fact that it was so huge is what caught my eye." As I mentioned, it was at that time that the sunlight bouncing off the dark twin to Earth was optimal, and now we see it in the night sky, and it takes on a different effect, Okay, the Kachina, the Hopi Indians, also depict Nibiru and the Earth's dark twin as the red Kachina and blue Kachina. These are certainly the colors of these planets when they become visible. Per the Zetas, the Earth's dark twin comes up behind the Earth in their shared orbit, is pushed close to the Earth, but escapes from this crunch during the last weeks. This approach and drama is described in the Hopi prophecy. Note the parallel to the India mythology, where Kali prevails over Shiva and stands over his dead body. Yet the Hopi and the Hindus of India are on the other side of the world from one another geographically. Quoting Hopi prophecy. This is amazing. This is a correlation I'm trying to make here, that India mythology and Hopi mythology are describing the same drama in the same colors and the same interaction of these planets. And I'm quoting the Hopi prophecy. When the blue star Kuchina makes its appearance in the heavens, the fifth world will emerge. This will be the day of purification. It will come that when the Sasquatch, which is the blue Kachina, dances in the plaza and takes off his mask. In the final day, we will look up in the heavens and we will witness the return of the two brothers who helped create this world in the birthing time. The twins will be seen in our northwestern skies. The return of the blue Kachina, who is also known as Nangasohu, will be the forewarning that tells us there will soon be a new day, a new way of life, and a new world coming. When the purifier comes, we will see him first as a small red star, which will come very close and sit in our heavens watching us. This purifier will show us many miraculous signs in our heavens. Then one morning we will awaken to a red dawn. The sky will be the color of blood. Well, clearly we're talking the dark star looming, the dark twin looming close and being seen as a bluish color. And then here comes Nibiru, the purifier. Where the Kachinas of the Hopi and the Hindu gods are making cosmic allegories, in Finland and China the warnings detail the weather. In Finland, there is an end-time prediction about flooding, which is understandable due to Finland lying at the end of the Baltic Sea, a bay where ocean sloshing will wash water ashore. The Norse god Laeder would blow the mythical Gallarhorn during a time of very cold winters to warn of the Viking apocalypse. This legend seems to be specific to Finland, not to the world. And sometimes that's the case. Legends are specific to the country. And then this is also true of reports from China 3,600 years ago. During the last pole shift, i.e., 1600 before Christ, the reign of Emperor Ji suffered, and this was well recorded, and I quote, "In the 29th year of King Shen, the sun was dimmed. King Shen lacked virtue. The sun was distressed. During the last years of Shen, ice formed in mornings and frost in the 6th month. Heavy rainfall toppled temples and buildings. Heaven gave severe orders. The sun and moon were untimely. Hot and cold weather arrived in disorder. The 5 cereal crops withered and died." End of the quote. Now, boy, doesn't that sound like some of the weather we're getting? Where it's unusually cold in some places and very, very warm. Europe and across Persia, and Afghanistan, etc., all the way to the Far East, they're having scorching hot weather in our southwest in the U.S. And here in the morning, it's down 50, even 60 degrees in the mornings. I don't even have my air conditioner in yet. It's just bizarre.
Right.
All right.
It is weird. But
yes, it is.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's weird everywhere, though. I mean, it's not just us.
Yes.
I think this weekend, they had like 1.5 feet of hail in Spain or something. It's weird. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, extreme hail. I mean, Denver had things that were the size of baseballs, or it's such a deluge of rain, or all of a sudden a drought. Somebody was saying, we have drought here. 5 miles over the hill, they can't get rid of the rain. And nobody, it's just very extreme, which was predicted by the Zetas, by the way, and it fits with some of these descriptions of what countries dealt with prior to the recorded pole shift. China having this cold. Now here's something else, a different report from China, and it's a mythology, allegorical. But what's fascinating is that the Zetas were able to pinpoint exactly which prior pole shift this Nuwa legend was talking about. And I found that astonishing, and they confirmed each other. You know, this one confirms Zeta talk and vice versa. The legend of Nuwa in China is highly allegorical but clear in its description of the crustal shift that occurred. The Nuwa legend describes the globe tilting during past pole shifts, so the sun and north appear in new locations. The sky moved to the northwest and the globe slid to the southeast. I quote from PowerPoint Paradise site. The Chinese legend tells how the world was swept by a great flood, and only Fuzi and his sister Nuwa survived. There was a quarrel between the two of the more powerful gods, and they decided to settle it with a fight. When the water god Gong Gong saw that he was losing, he smashed his head against Mount Bruzu, a pillar holding up the sky. The pillar collapsed and caused the sky to tilt toward the northwest and the earth to shift to the southeast. This caused great floods and suffering to the people. Nuwa was unable to fully correct the tilted sky. Okay, crustal shift stayed there. Now how does that relate to Zeta talk? The directions given are so accurate they can be correlated with Zeta talk descriptions of recent pole shifts. The ice ages of the past correlate with the location of the North Pole in the past, which for inexplicable reasons moved from Wisconsin to Scandinavia to Greenland. For the Zetas, it was the pole shift 14,400 years ago that moved the North Pole from North America to Scandinavia, and this would have caused the crustal shift described in the Nuwa legend. Such a shift would push Asia and the China coastline into the water, thus the flood descriptions. For someone in China and Southeast Asia used to seeing Polaris and related constellations overhead and slightly to the east, all this shifted at that time to being in the northwest. It's so logical. Okay, last week's, but in some cases, such as the descriptions of the Jewish Talmud, or the Christian Bible, or in the Egyptian Kolbrin, or the Muslim Hadiths, or the Buddhist Vishudi Magga, or the Book of Enoch, which was omitted from the Bible, a written description is given. Where these warnings seem to differ, they in fact are delivering the same message. One oft-repeated warning in both the Hadiths and the Talmud is the sun rising in the west for several days prior to a passage. In the Talmud, this is for a period of 7 days before the passage. In the Hadiths, the sun rising from the west goes on for 6 days. Now, mind you, the Hadiths are Muslim and writings, and the Talmud is Jewish. So here we go again, confirming each other and confirming Zeta talk. And per the Zetas, this is within the last weeks, but in some weeks before the actual hour of the pole shift. Where the length of time differs, the fact of the sun rising in the west during the last weeks is consistent, and even seems to be a message delivered by some crop circles. Likewise, in both the book of Joshua and the 12th Iman, a stopped rotation is mentioned, and the book of Exodus refers to a dark sky and the earth turning over, and I quote from the Talmud, 7 days before the deluge, the Holy One changed the primeval order, and the sun rose in the west and set in the east. Quoting the Hadiths, the hour will not be established until the sun rises from the west. Look at that time for a violent wind, an earthquake being swallowed up by the earth, pelting rain and signs following one another like bits of a necklace falling one after the other when its string is cut. Quoting the 12th Iman, the rising of the sun from the west, one of the things which must happen. Between the decline of the sun at noon and the time of the afternoon prayer, the sun will remain still, quoting the book of Joshua. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, and the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. So the sun stood still in the midst of the heavens, and haste not to go down about a whole day. Quoting the book of Exodus, midday is no brighter than night. Ships were sucked away from their moorings and destroyed in great whirlpools. The earth turned over as clay spun upon a potter's wheel. Now here we have the Bible, the Talmud, the Hadiths and the 12th Imam, which are Islamic, and they're all saying the same thing. Another repeatedly mentioned sign of a pending passage of Nibiru is an earth wobble. Rather than describing this in technical terms, as Zeta Talk has done, as a figure eight formed by the North Pole of Earth, this is described as a confused sky. Because in many cases, you're talking to people who may not even understand that the Earth is not flat. This is allegorical for sometimes primitive peoples who look up and they don't know that we have a globe. They don't know about other countries or latitude and longitude and yet, et cetera, et cetera. So if they say, well, the North Pole is forming a figure eight, it would be confusing and too technical. So it's described differently. The moon moving too rapidly, stars out of place, and in general the populace not paying attention to these signs. The wobble has been with us since 2004 and is getting worse. But how we correlate all this with a time frame is not clear. Once again, we're not given a time frame. The question I'm asked at least once a day, well, when is this going to happen? I said, well, the date is not to be known. We're given a series of events, a sequence of events, but everybody will tell you the date is not to be known. But coming up, we're going to have a clue. The Kolbrin does an excellent job describing this, as does the book of Enoch, which was excluded from the Bible on purpose. It was excluded because it gave too much precision about the signs of Nibiru approaching. And those people that wanted to keep this secret for themselves, I've heard it said that the Illuminati in the past, the powerful people, the religious elite, the wealthy, the kingships, they wanted to keep the information that Nibiru would return to themselves because it's very powerful information, and you can manipulate the common man, if they don't have this knowledge and to the way you want, which they're doing today with the cover-up. The rich are building their bunkers, and the poor people are buying land along the coastlines, which is going to become worthless when the tides start washing the coastlines away. Okay. The Kolbrin does an excellent job describing this, as does the book of Enoch, as I said, quoting from the Kolbrin. When ages pass, certain laws operate upon the stars in the heavens. Their ways change. There is movement and restlessness. They are no longer constant, and a great light appears redly in the skies. The heralds of doom will appear. They will come softly as thieves to the tombs. Men will not know them for what they are. Men will be deceived. The hour of the destroyer is at hand. Quoting from the book of Exodus, strange omens in the skies. Quoting from the book of Enoch, which was omitted from the Bible, and you'll see why in a minute. And all things on earth shall alter, and shall not appear in their time, and the moon shall alter her orbit, and not appear at her time. And in those days the sun shall be seen, and he shall journey in the evening on the extremity of the great chariot in the west. And he shall shine more brightly than accords with the order of light. And many chiefs of the stars shall transgress their order. And these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear in the seasons described to them. And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed, and the thoughts of those on earth shall err concerning them. Well, we have that. We have a wobble that puts the constellations in the wrong place. The sun is rising and setting in the wrong place. I keep hearing, In Wisconsin, for instance, or Michigan, people say, wow, the dawn comes up way in the northeast, way too far, and setting, that
really
type of thing.
Far
and
north.
And they notice this, and if they try to get anyone to pay attention to them, like the weatherman or observatories or NASA, it's like, you're nuts, you don't know what you're looking at, and, that type of thing. So the moon altering, yeah?
Right. The moon altering, but also when you're speaking about the rising and the setting of the sun, I'm not sure who it is on on the pole shifting that does the tracking of the azimuth of the rising and the set. Is she with the university here or at Madison?
No. I know her well, Mrs. Sakamaki, and she's in Wisconsin, and she gets up in the morning and she notices where the azimuth of the sunrise is and the time, and correlates that to where it's supposed to be, and it's never where it's supposed to be, So, but there's also some people in Michigan who have noted that the sun is rising way too far to the northeast, and people have talked about that in Europe also. So it's beginning to get extreme enough. There was even a thread on Godlike Production, which has some pretty bright people that go and do analysis. And it was a pinned thread, and I copied a lot of the comments down and made it a newsletter feature. Oh, it's light out, the dusk, twilight. We're supposed to have light, twilight, or dusk an hour after the sun goes down. And they said, it's midnight, and it's still twilight out there. What's going on? It didn't necessarily last, but for 2 or 3 weeks, that was going on. The thing about the wobble is it moves around, and it's irregular. You can have, it moves around, let's put it that way, but it's bizarre enough that people are beginning to notice this and ask questions. And I have always said, I think that that's going to be one of the things that the cover-up will not be able to deal with is a wobble. And that's because you can say almost anything, that the sun's rays are causing electromagnetic pulse. Or you can say that even if you see visibility, something in the sky, they can say, but light bends, and that's just, sort of like sundogs or something. And they make up all kinds of excuses. But a severe wobble where the sun is appearing all over the place, different places, how are they going to explain that one? A combination of things like increased visibility and a wobble, and we are starting to get more revealed in the media. They're starting to talk about, it's like we've gone back to 1983 when they went out seeking Nemesis, which is this dark binary of the sun out there, static binary, not in a dance with our sun. And then when they found Nibiru coming in its sling orbit, they said, never mind, it was all a mistake. And now we're going back to that time, and they're talking about the sun has a binary, a dark unlit binary, and talking using the proper name, which is Nemesis. And that was in the press all over the place in the early 1980s, before 1983 when they discovered infrared balloon, discovered that, and also using the right term for Nibiru in the media a lot. So they're getting closer, to an admission, and it may be that the prongs will still come forward and make the announcement, by a series of astronomers in various countries chirping in. I just don't know how it's going to happen, but we are getting closer.
Right.
As has been noted by many. Yeah?
I was just going to say the NASA is giving away some clues too by putting up that 747 infrared telescope, Sophia. Have you heard? The telescope that's mounted inside a 747 that's been taking flights and doing sunrises and sunsets, and it doesn't. It's one of those planes that's so expensive to put into the air because it's so technologically, it takes a bunch of money to put it in the air. So it's mainly used to spot asteroids, comets, that sort of thing. But it's got
here's another opportunity for them. Right.
Right.
They can quote unquote discover what's been there all along. And the Dark Energy Survey, the prongs we're going to have, the Dark Energy Survey, which is out of that Chile observatory, run by the ESA of Europe, and they were going to go back through older images looking for exoplanets close in. I thought, well, there it is. They're going to discover, there it is in 2003, and oh, it's next to the sun. Oh, maybe that's that thing that everybody's talking about, the object next to the sun. And it was like they could do it in one swoop, because they have all that they need, but then it stopped and it stalled, and I just don't know. There's a lot of opportunities, but just which direction it's going to come from, I don't know. The moon has been noted by many. Presently, it has a tilted face and an extreme orbit. Pictographs from the Middle Ages also show the moon turning his face away from Nibiru. Other than giving the warning that these things precede a passage, we are not given a time frame. Once again, not given a time frame. In the opinion of the Zetas, the moon is avoiding the heavy traffic lane, quoting Zeta Talk. The moon, as a bead on the edge of the hat rim traveling around the hat, is seen in the extreme north during part of the month and at the extreme south 2 weeks later. Why? A turmoil mostly present at the ecliptic, which the moon normally rides. The easy out for the moon is to avoid the crowded lane, which it does by being too high and then too low for the majority of the orbit. Now, I presented this as a hat that is tilted, and normally it's on the head, tilted very slightly. It's supposed to be like a 5-degree offset from straight across. But now it's more like 20 to 30 degree offset. And when you watch the face of the man of the moon, it's supposed to rotate only about 5 degrees as you go through the night staring at it. And now it's like a 90-degree rotation. And people have taken pictures of this, and said this is what it's supposed to look like, but this is what it really looks like. And here it is, and then 6 hours later, here it is. And oh my gosh, it's so well documented, especially on my website. The Kolbrin does give a time frame for the warning given to Noah. He took 2 years to build his ark and noted the swift passage of the moon across the night sky. This would likely indicate an extreme wobble, but again, an exact timeline is missing. Quoting the Kolbrin, they had knowledge of signs and omens, the secrets of the seasons, of the moon and the coming of the waters. There were wise men filled with the inner knowledge, who read the book of heavens with understanding and knew the signs. Then the day came when the Lady of the Night changed her garment for one of a different hue, and her form swept more swiftly across the skies. Her tresses streamed out behind in gold and copper, and she rode in a chariot of fire, end quote. Now here's a clue. Rapid movement of the moon across the sky. I've had people tell me that they've been laying on their back, looking at the night sky, and they saw it go whoop, that type of thing. But, like I would say a couple of feet or something like that, and then stop. The wobble does happen quickly, but for it to spin all the way across the sky, well, that's an extreme wobble back and forth, etc. We're not there yet, I don't think, but we may be. The description of the passage itself, where Nibiru seems to stand between the earth and sun, red dust and debris and hail everywhere, earthquakes and tidal waves everywhere, is found in many sources. These descriptions encompass the last week and the hour of the pole shift itself. And they go on and on. We